Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting on January 26th. We are resuming, there we go. We are resuming our meeting from this afternoon. And I'll start with our Indigenous territorial acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we are broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. I also have a statement because the next month, February, is Black History Month. So the month of February serves as an important reminder of the profound contributions of Black individuals in shaping our community here and beyond. Despite systemic barriers rooted in racism, Black Canadians have made outstanding contributions to the Waterloo region, Ontario, Canada, and around the world. We honor the past, we also celebrate the present, and look toward a future where everyone's contributions are recognized and valued. And just a note that starting in February, on Sunday, February 1st, the Caribbean Canadian Association of Waterloo Region is hosting their 7th annual Black History Month launch. And this year's theme is Honoring the Past, Empowering the Future, which celebrates Black excellence, resilience, and contributions across generations. So you can find more information about that online. Oh, well, sorry, that event will be held at the Ken Sealing Waterloo Region Museum in Kitchener. It's 11:30 a.m. approximately for the afternoon. It's free, all ages, and open to the entire community. But you can find more information about that online. February 2026 marks the 31st anniversary of Black History Month in Canada, officially recognized by Canadian Parliament following a motion introduced by the Honourable Jean Augustine. The launch will feature inspiring speakers, including the Honourable Jean Augustine and Antonio Michael Dowling, along with vibrant performances by Isus, Rosh Rhythms, Kwan Move, Junkanoo Legends, and Caravas Dance Company. I apologize for not pronouncing those correctly. We're also excited to share that the Grand River Transit, which is a regional service, will unveil a Black History Month 2026 bus wrap featuring art by local artist Vanessa Okori on display across the region throughout February. So a moment of reflection. At the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Excuse me. Okay, so Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we have a staff report, 250 Lincoln Road update and next steps. Michelle Lee is here and has a presentation for us. So over to you and welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just going to set myself up here. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present. I've got a brief presentation that covers some of the highlights of the report, plus also some questions and concerns that we've heard since releasing the report that hopefully we can provide some insight on. First, I wanted to start with a project overview. For those who may not be aware, the city purchased 250 Lincoln Road in April 2025. The intended use was for affordable housing, as well as an interim public programming space for arts, which was ultimately not pursued after investigation. The funding that we used to purchase the building and property was earmarked for affordable housing, and so the intended use for affordable housing aligns with the funding that was allocated to this project. Today, we're seeking council's direction on a number of things. One, to direct staff to initiate the planning, review, and engagement process. Two, to direct staff to develop the request for expression of interest and to release that to potential proponents. Three, to direct staff to proceed with the demolition of the building. And fourth, to direct staff to consider possible interim use of the site, notwithstanding that I just mentioned that the interim public programming space wasn't feasible, but we do have a recommendation in the report about a possible interim use of the landscaping. The site and its use for affordable housing aligns with a number of strategic plans and objectives that the city has. Most notably, it aligns with our affordable housing strategy that council adopted a few years ago and the target that we set for ourselves to try to achieve 30% of all new housing as affordable, recognizing that we don't typically build housing, but we have the ability to facilitate affordable housing in a variety of ways, purchasing properties and making them available to not-for-profits for affordable housing is one of those ways that can really move the needle on affordable housing. 250 Lincoln Road is a fairly large property at 0.42 hectares. It is the site of the former St. Columba Church. It has a parking lot on the site that is currently used for pickup and drop-off by students going to Lincoln Heights Public School, and we understand that it is fairly heavily used for that purpose in the mornings and the evenings. More broadly, Lincoln Road is on the immediately across the street, or actually the stop is right on the same side of the street as the property for Route 29, the GRT Route 29, and it's within a close walking distance for Route 202, which is an I-Express bus that connects the site to the boardwalk, to University of Waterloo, and Conestoga Station. Approximately a 6-minute walk or less, you can get to Glenridge Plaza and Azairs. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's very close proximity to Lincoln Heights Public School, and it's also within about a 5 to 6 minute walk to Rosalie Park. A little farther away, about a 10 to 13 minute walk, you can reach Moses Springer Community Center, and the Conestoga College Waterloo campus is also within about a 13-minute walk. So I wanted to spend most of tonight's presentation just talking about some of the issues and concerns that have been raised leading up to the development of the staff report, but then also since the release of the staff report, to provide a little bit of clarity on staff's intent and the process that we're proposing. The first item that we've heard a lot about is school parking and concern around how the parking lot may or may not be used to support that need. It's staff's intention that we would enable that parking to continue for the drop-offs and the pickups for the remainder of the 2026 school year. We would explore the extension of that parking use to 2026-2027 school year. We need to confirm that we can get the agreement in place and a number of other considerations, but it would be our intent to extend that drop-off pickup use for that 2026-2027 year, if possible. And then we'd work with the travel planning staff at the school board to support them in finding alternative travel plans for students in the longer term. Regarding general traffic and pedestrian safety, we have heard from the community that there has been a request for some time for a pedestrian crossing at Mayfield and Quickfall. Staff are considering the possibility of installing such a crossing timed with any future site redevelopment. So we're looking at that, and that would be something we'd further investigate and would be determined through the planning process that I referenced earlier. More broadly, the traffic impacts of a site redevelopment would be considered once we, partly in tandem with investigation of a possible zoning framework amendment. So what we would do as part of that amendment is we'd be looking at what the potential impacts of any increase in density or number of units on the site, how that would impact the broader community, whether there's sufficient transportation facilities support any increase in density or use. We received a survey that was conducted by the neighborhood looking at interim uses of the site and the building, and we explored the possibility of what the costs might be to support these uses. It's staff's recommendation that we not proceed with any interim uses of the building, primarily because the costs to bring the building up to a standard that would support any interim use, and knowing that that interim use would be only a few years, the cost benefit just didn't seem like good value for money for the city given such a short time frame. We did look at a number of exterior uses, pickleball courts, tennis courts, and other types of outdoor uses. And a similar challenge arose that there was fairly sizable capital investment involved in many of those interim uses, and knowing that the interim use might only be 1 to 2 years long, it didn't seem like good value for the money. However, we did look into a passive green space. So basically, a park-like setting that would have a grassy area that you could have a pickup game of baseball or kick a ball around. That is something that would have very low capital investment in and could be installed very, very quickly. And so it could capitalize on the summer season of this summer as well as next summer. So it was something that we thought maybe was feasible, and we're seeking council's direction to further consider that as an option. We also looked at a community space in the final development, and we know that that is of interest to a number of members of the community. We envision and would like to see a final product at the end that includes affordable housing and a community space that could be available not just to the residents of the building, but perhaps a space that could be used by the broader neighborhood or even people across the city. We'd like to do more engagement to see what that community space might look like, what the needs are. We'd also like to consult with housing providers to ensure that if we do set that as a requirement in the request for expression of interest, that that doesn't limit the quality or the quantity of proposals that we receive. So we want to really understand the feasibility while still trying to push towards some kind of community use, because we've heard quite loudly that that is something that the community would like to see. The proposed housing requirements that we've set out for the request for expression of interest that we're putting out there for your consideration is very much in line with what we did for 2025 University Avenue East, and that was setting the very minimum bar of affordable housing at 30%. That gives some flexibility to housing providers to have market rate units that can help offset the costs of the less expensive units. We would want to see the remaining units continue to be attainable, though, so that means we wouldn't want to see luxury units on the site, especially since we've used affordable housing dollars to purchase the site. So we'd be looking for a balance of affordable units and attainable units, and we'd like to keep it somewhat flexible so that the proponent has some ability to consider units that may be slightly more expensive, but that are offering a need in the community. For example, a 3-bedroom, family-sized unit that might be not meeting the definition of affordable, but it's considered attainable and is meeting a need that we've identified. We'd like to propose that the units remain affordable or attainable, depending on which criteria they meet, for the long term and ideally in perpetuity, and that the unit types and sizes be designed to meet local needs. So we'd be asking the proponent to identify what communities they're intending to serve with this housing, and as well we would be listening to the public and to housing providers and service organizations about what the broader needs are in the city. With respect to the planning process and opportunities for public engagement, first of all, the planning process would be really seeking to balance optimization of the site. There's only so many properties available for redevelopment in the city, and we want to make best use of this site. It's a fairly large site. That being said, we're also very mindful that new development can have impact on neighborhoods and the community, and we'd be looking for a balance between those two things. The online engagement we're proposing would start almost immediately, February 2026. We plan to have something posted on Engage. That will lay out dates and additional information about how people can get involved. It'll include a survey, and in short order, we'll be organizing a public information session to be held in March to provide more information to the community and to gather more feedback. We're proposing that we also carry out some targeted consultation with housing providers, service groups, and the region who have quite a bit of experience in this area. Regarding the timing of the planning process, you'll probably have noted that the process and timeline that we've outlined looks fairly expedited, and I would say it is a very rapid process that we've proposed. There's a number of reasons for this. One is that we would like to move this project forward quickly because we know the demand for housing is high, and we also are carrying operational costs as we hold on to this property, and we would like to see this project move forward. That being said, we know that there may be things that interfere with our ability to meet that targeted date of June 2026. Things like any new information that comes about water capacity, we'll have to be responsive to that. Any additional consultation that we feel is needed, or the possibility that we might want to extend the request for expression of interest out a little longer to make sure that we get the quality and quantity of submissions that we're hoping for. So I think I'll leave it there. I've just got this timeline. It's just a reproduction from the staff report outlining the various steps that we're proposing and some dates tied to those. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate we appreciate the report and the update, and kind of reminding us of the origins of this project and the reason the city took the initiative to purchase the site. And again, just, there was federal dollars involved with this as well that we have to be mindful of. But yeah, thank you very much for reminding us of the original intent. Council, are there questions of staff regarding this? Go ahead, Councillor Bodley.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McCabe. I have two questions. So one is around sort of the possibility that we may need to rezone the site. And I know when we went out for 2025 University, obviously this is a much smaller parcel of land. The visioning is not quite as grandiose as we had for 2025. But I know that through the engagement process, we heard that we shouldn't be limiting what the height could potentially be at 2025 University. And indeed, actually, we ended up increasing the height at 2025 University after some of that public engagement. Can you advise whether we are at a stage right now when we go out on an REOI that we are going to be asking for a certain zoning framework, or are we going out with the intention to let proponents know that the zoning framework is flexible?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bodley, I think our preference is to go out with a request for expression of interest that if the zoning hasn't been finalized, at least there's clear communication about what the intent is ultimately for the site. We don't want to create unrealistic expectations and have proposals come in that are proposing development densities that aren't even contemplated. It's possible, like for example, the 2025 University Avenue project, we didn't have the MZO in place at the time that the request for proposals went out, but we were able to communicate that this was sort of the direction we were headed, and that we can specify that proposals work within that framework. And so that would be staff's recommendation, that we use that similar approach. It gives a lot more certainty, and then it also creates an apples to apples comparison for evaluating the proposals.
Thank you, and just a comment on that. I think especially if, as you noted, there's high community interest in a community space in this development. I think limiting the height is going to make it more difficult to include a community space, given the intended purchase of the property for affordable housing. So I'll just do that there. The second question I have is around the timing, and you noted this, that it seems like sort of a condensed time frame, and that was the thing that sort of jumped out to me immediately when I saw it. The concern that I appreciate everything that you've noted. The concern that I have, I guess, and the question that I have is, especially with the current development freeze that the region has on right now, obviously all of us are hopeful that that's going to be a temporary thing. The region is going to resolve these concerns, and we will be able to move forward. Not to diminish how important the water capacity issues are, but we are hoping that that's going to be a relatively quick process. My concern here is that, given the uncertainty there, possibly this condensed time frame may limit the quality and the quantity of REOIs that we receive. And so you talked about potentially extending that. Can you maybe speak to practically what that looks like in May of 2026 if we're evaluating these REOI proposals and staff are not satisfied with what the proposals look like, or in terms of either quality or quantity? What would the next steps be at that point in time?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bodley, I think actually I would want to be more preemptive than that, and rather, instead of deciding that we wanted to extend the REOI process after receiving substandard proposals, I think what we'd want to do is be very mindful that we need to give sufficient time to housing providers to provide those submissions. And so before determining what that time frame would be that they have to review the request for expressions of interest and the deadline to submit, we'd want to consult with housing providers to get a sense of like how much time do you need to gather the information, develop a design, and bring forward, and then we would work within that time frame. So with 2025 University Avenue East, I think we gave it the absolute shortest amount of time, and in fact I think we even extended it by 1 week based on the request by all the proponents that were interested. I think we would want to extend it a little longer than that. I think it was a 6 or 7 week turnaround, and that was really short. We'd be looking at least, I think, an 8 week turnaround. That being said, if we do, like the example you provided, if we do find it's disappointing and that none of the expressions of interest really meet the bar, and we're not satisfied that any of them are, that we can't recommend any of them to council, I think that the process we would probably want to return to council and get direction to go back out for a second REOI. Maybe, I think we'd also want to understand why were the proposals not to our satisfaction. The region has done this, having sent out requests for proposals and finding no takers, and then doing sort of interviews with proponents that they thought were going to submit and ask, why didn't you submit? And then we would revise the request and then send it out again.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm just going to jump in for a second, Councillor Bodley. I just want to be careful about how we talk about the water infrastructure issue, because we haven't, at the city of Waterloo, as I spent, well, myself and Commissioner Ormson spent most of Thursday and Friday talking to nonprofit housing developers and representatives from the private sector involved with the development community, and our planning department is continuing to process applications. So I just want to be really careful about calling this a freeze, because it actually, it's not. So I just wanted to add that for anyone watching. Thank you. Go ahead. Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, my brain is working.
Okay. Do you need a minute? Because we have others who, okay.
No, my brain works fast.
Okay.
One, I think that's a prudent approach, pending sort of the quality and quantity. I wanted to ensure that they were going to come back to council, especially given the sort of high public interest on this site. I think it's really important for us to be very forthcoming with the public about what the REOIs look like. And I did just want to add a comment, not a question, that obviously when we compare, it's hard, and I don't want to compare to 2025 University, but at 2025 University, a lot of that condensed time frame was because we had half money that was going directly towards this, and we had MZO, and we had timelines that were really, really tight for us to meet, and it was substantial effort from yourself and numerous other folks at the City of Waterloo to get that going, and I really do appreciate that. And here we don't have those external pressures, and so that's not to say that we shouldn't move quickly and we don't have other pressures, and I really do want to get affordable housing built on this site as quickly as we possibly can. I just don't want it to be limited when we are looking at REOIs, especially if we've deemed them to be substandard. I don't want to be moving forward with something less than what we were hoping on the site in the interest of moving quickly. So I appreciate the comments, though, and I appreciate the helpful sort of layer of what might happen if that is the case. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. First off, I just want to remind us all around the Horseshoe that we have quite a full gallery tonight, and acronyms sometimes are not well understood by the general public. So I'm just going to go through a couple of them. HAF is the Housing Accelerator Fund. When we talk about CMHC, that's the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, and so both of those are federal programs. When we talk about an REOI, that's a request for an expression of interest. And I'll just encourage everybody to unpack the acronyms as we move forward. I just want to go back to the comments about the recommended amendments to the planning framework. And because we have a couple of things that processes that are happening concurrently. So with the city's Housing Accelerator Fund monies, we've also been looking at updating the planning framework for places of worship. And this property precedes that work, so it's a little bit like we're a little bit advanced on this site for the work that is actually unfolding right now at the city. And the main priority of that, as identified in the report, is to enable their redevelopment as mixed use and missing middle housing developments. And I'm just wondering if you can help us understand a little bit more about what missing middle housing actually is, because there are a lot of different explanations or definitions for it, and I know that we don't have a common definition for it.
Through the mayor to Councillor Wright. You're quite right that this project that we're talking about tonight is working in parallel with the project that we're calling the Places of Worship review, I guess we could say. And our planning team is leading that, and they're looking at places of worship across the city and looking at opportunities to ensure that they're zoned appropriately to allow those spiritual uses to adapt and change with time, whether it be that they want to add housing in addition to the existing spiritual use, or maybe sell the property and congregate in a different location. But that ideally those sites will continue to not only bring forward housing, but they'll also be able to bring forward some of the community uses that were provided for through that place of worship. And so that project is happening simultaneously. We're really lucky to have a planner on this file that's going to be working on both. And she's actually in the audience, so taking notes about what the community is saying and what council is saying. There are going to be a lot of opportunities for lessons learned from one project that we'll be able to carry over to the other and vice versa. So there are some benefits actually to having these projects happening in parallel. The reason why they're not happening simultaneously is that, as you said, this one is much more advanced and needs to advance on its own because we're at a much more detailed level of planning than the other project. So that's that piece. And then I'm sorry, can you just remind me what the second question was?
The missing middle.
Missing middle, yeah. So we do have a regional official plan that we've now, I don't want to say inherited, but we now are responsible for, in addition to our own official plan. The region's official plan does have a definition for missing middle in it. It's very, very broad. And I agree with you that there is not a lot of definitive teeth to a lot of the definitions used very commonly to mean, and the way I'm using it in the context of St. Columba is to mean infill development that's scaled appropriately for the neighborhood. That's not to say it's going to be exactly the same height as the tallest building in the neighborhood, but we're also not looking at high-rise buildings. So something that is either ground-oriented, so stacked townhouses or something like that, or perhaps a small apartment building that is located sensitively within a neighborhood, that also, if there is a mixed use to be had, that mixed use is probably going to be on the ground floor, so that it offers opportunities for people in the community to benefit from the non-residential space, but then also it offers additional housing. The idea behind that, of course, is we're not making any new land in the city, and we have to make efficient use of our infrastructure and land to accommodate housing for the growing population that we have. And so that's the definition that I've been using for this report. The exact framework that we settle on, as I think I conveyed in the report, remains to be seen, and obviously will come from engagement with the community, but also engagement with housing providers about what's feasible financially and what the community needs. And in there, we'll be trying to find a balance.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that, and that's it. If they're, through the expression of interest process, I'm sure developers will be in high touch with the city to talk through some of the conditions. And I would also imagine that they will be looking to creatively finance a project like this. So would they likely go to the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation for part of that financing? Like, does CMHC still have funding for projects like this for affordable housing?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wright, yes, there is MLI Select, and then another acronym that I can't remember. There are two programs at CMHC that offers funding for rental housing developments, and actually it just so happens that that financing does have its own affordability requirements that are somewhat in line with the ones that we've set out very broadly in our report. There's also the possibility of private financing. Other foundations like the Waterloo Region Community Foundation, credit unions do have some financing for affordable housing. My guess would be that any affordable housing provider would first start at CMHC. There's also the new program, Build Canada Homes, that is offering, their intention is to try and fill the gaps, I believe, that aren't being filled by CMHC, so providing more flexible financing opportunities, whatever that might look like. And so, yes, to make a long story short, it would be my understanding that the not-for-profit would be seeking financing from CMHC.
And so just the last assumption here would be that then they would need to essentially comply with the conditions of CMHC to achieve that financing. So CMHC is basically a bit of a driver in all of this process. Okay, that's all
correct.
I just wanted to get at. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Other questions from council? Okay, seeing none? Oh, okay. Okay, there are, did you, okay, Councillor Rowe.
Sorry, I was making notes. Thanks so much, Michelle. I actually have a question. There is a recommendation that says staff recommend that the REOI, the request for expression of interest, seek a nonprofit housing provider or consortium led by a nonprofit, where the city will either A, grant the land at no or nominal cost, or B, provide the land through a long-term land lease. So I was wondering if you could just unpack that a little bit for us.
Certainly, through the mayor to Councillor Rowe. Again, we've used this approach for 2025 University Avenue, and one of the reasons why we tried to keep it open, so just to sort of restate what you just said, the idea would be that we'd be looking for proposals that would either result in the not-for-profit owning the land, so we would convey the land to them, or they would be leasing it from us. We know that both options are feasible. City of Toronto has some examples, and I believe City of Kitchener now is undertaking one development where they'll continue to own the lands, and a not-for-profit, or in that case, sometimes it might be a for-profit affordable housing provider, leases the land, and they do have to be fairly creative with their financing to enable that, because they can't leverage the value of the lands in that case. And then in the case of just direct conveyance of the land to a proponent, that's a fairly straightforward option. That would mean that the proponent uses the land as an asset, and they could leverage financing with CMHC and get good rates, and that financing helps them construct the building. The reason why we've left it open is that we don't want to preclude creative solutions. We do like the idea of, when I say we, I guess I should say me, I like the idea of long-term city ownership. It does come with some drawbacks, though, operational costs that we'd have to consider of being the long-term owner and obligations as the ultimate owner of a property. The perks are, though, that we would be in ultimate control of what happens, when that lease is over. If the city has different objectives or wants to change something, we are the owner and we have that control. Ultimately, though, I think the objective is to have affordable housing being created in perpetuity, so that it remains affordable in perpetuity. And by being the owner of that property, we can ensure that, but we don't have to be the owner to ensure that. We can do that through other mechanisms, and that's what we've done with 2025 University Avenue. We've used legal mechanisms combined with requirement that it be non-for-profits that own some of the rental buildings, that have a mandate to provide affordable housing, and then an option for us to buy back the developments if they end up ever switching into private hands. So there are a variety of options, and there's no one perfect option. They each come with trade-offs, advantages and disadvantages. And so it would be our recommendation that we leave that open and see what proposals come in. In advance of getting the proposals, though, we'd be setting out the criteria of what's important to the city, what are the ultimate things we're trying to achieve, and then we judge those different proposals based on those criteria.
Did you have a follow-up, Councillor? No? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Vassic.
Thanks through you, Mayor McCabe. Thanks for your report and presentation, Michelle. You added some pieces about the school context and considerations here, but I'm hoping that you can elaborate a little bit more about how the school, Lincoln Heights, will be considered and consulted through the process.
Through the mayor to Councillor Vassic. We definitely have heard loud and clear that there is a real concern and a real value to the use of the parking lot for pickup and drop off. And so I did highlight one thing that we would be doing in addition to trying to enable the use to continue for basically a year and a half until we're a little closer to the redevelopment. But other things that we would definitely do is working with the school principal as part of our consultation with stakeholders would be part of that outreach, understanding any concerns they have, and working with the school to ensure that they have sufficient time to plan for alternatives. So that as well, we would be sharing an invitation to our public information session, so the people that are members of the school community can participate as well.
Great, thank you. And what about consulting with school transportation services of Waterloo region, particularly given some of the parking concerns now, but then also the longer term parking considerations and traffic considerations you outlined in the report?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Vassic, our transportation staff have already been in contact with the school board student transportation planner there, and I don't have that job name quite right, but I think you know who I'm talking about. And that line of communication will continue. It's I think we have a good working relationship with the school board, and we'll continue to work to make sure that we give them sufficient time and opportunity to transition off the site and onto another appropriate site.
Okay, great, thank you. And would you help both the people who are here today and to make sure we all know on council in detail the process for declaring lands as surplus? That's come up as a question as well for me.
through the mayor to Councillor Vasic. Actually, I'll do it in broad strokes. Council does need to declare lands as surplus, and we do need to notify the public through a formal, ad in some paper or in the media. There's a specific time frame that you need to post that ad. So we'll be planning to do that, basically walking back from the recommended time for demolition, getting that ad into the paper so that it's broadly circulated to the community, and then bringing a recommendation to council to declare the lands as surplus as a staff report. Following that, then, provided council supports that recommendation, we would proceed with the demolition.
Can you explain what it means to declare, not just the process, but also what it means to declare something as surplus? Why do you do it?
We have a bylaw. Actually, I'm looking, I don't see Joel Cotter in the room. But I do see Brad who's willing to speak to it. I'm not super well versed in the bylaw for declaring land surplus, so hopefully Brad can help me out.
Welcome, Mr. Witzel.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Vasic. Yeah, so in terms of city-owned assets and land, we have a disposition bylaw where we need to declare the land surplus to city use, so then we can go ahead with the disposition process. So in this case, through the Housing Accelerator funding, in part, we acquired an asset for an intended purpose, but we still do need to declare it surplus, so then we could provide it at no cost or nominal cost to a not-for-profit through the outcome of the request for expression of interest process. So normally we are talking about lands that the city has owned for numerous years that we're declaring surplus, but in this case, it's lands we've acquired, and then we'll declare surplus through this process.
Great, thank you both so much. I have a couple more questions, is that okay?
Sure. I just wanted, just on the traffic or the Lincoln, the school pub, I just wanted to add that I see a number of people who were at a public meeting we had, not a public meeting, sorry, and a meeting with within the ward just last Tuesday, where we did hear a lot of concerns from residents. So I appreciate them coming out. Councillor Vasic was there, Mr. Henderson, who's our Director of Transportation Services, were there, and representatives from the region. So we did hear a lot about, operation of lights, speeding, of course, through the neighborhood as well. So just wanted to let council know that it was well attended. I think there was about 70 people there, and some of whom I see tonight. So thanks for coming last Tuesday, but also tonight as well. So just wanted to tie that into your questions, Councillor. So go ahead, Councillor Vasic.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mayor. Through you, my next question is about adaptive reuse, and we know that there are financial, accessibility, and practical challenges of reusing the site, and it's one of the reasons why we chose not to use it as an interim site as a council back in June. But if through this process there are opportunities that present themselves for this building to be repurposed, for example, a proponent might come in and suggest the possibility that there could be an adaptive reuse of this site, and particularly given we're talking about spiritual uses as well in the near term. Are there merits to delaying recommendations 3 and 5 until after we've seen the REOIs that recommend demolition? So what are the merits and drawbacks of delaying B for that purpose?
Through the mayor to Councillor Vasic. We have considered adaptive reuse as all the way up to this very morning. In fact, just thinking about the pros and cons. So looking at the site, you can see that the church building is located almost in the very center of the property. An efficient redevelopment of the site would be fairly challenging if we were to adaptively reuse or try and work to preserve that building and then construct housing around it. That being said, there is always the possibility that a proponent might come in with a proposal. But what we are recommending to council at this point is to proceed with demolition because our priority is to try and make optimal use of the site. And the idea of building a community use brand new that is sort of purpose-built to address the local interest and needs we think is maybe preferable to trying to adapt an older building. I did want to pass it over to Kevin Van Oudegem as well, who I just tapped regarding possible costs associated with adaptive reuse, recognizing that your question about deferral sort of ultimately leads down to that possibility of adaptive reuse. So he can speak to what those costs might be.
Thanks, Michelle. Over to you, Commissioner Van Oudegem.
Thanks, Michelle, and through you, Mayor, to Councillor Vasic. So yeah, I can just speak maybe a little bit to sort of, a delay in the process, what that would mean from a city perspective. So right now, we do have some costs in terms of carrying the properties. So we do have a certain amount of property standards work that is ongoing at that property, specifically things like security patrols. We like to check in on all our properties on a regular basis, just as part of our due diligence and do a walkthrough through the facilities. So there's regular building maintenance activities that are happening at this property, which would continue in the event that the building stood going forward. And then in terms of costs, we do estimate, I'll just speak on an annual basis, that around $50,000 is what we're anticipating on an annual basis for carrying this building. And that would include things such as snow removal in the parking lot, grass cutting, fire life safety monitoring, minor maintenance if there's issues, and ongoing utilities. We do want to keep the building in a state that it doesn't develop mold or something like that that would complicate a demolition down the road. So those are sort of some of the ongoing impacts to the city from a cost perspective.
Okay, thanks so much for responding. I just have a couple more questions. Is that okay? If we were to go ahead with demolition, if we were going to go ahead with demolition today, is there a ability or process to salvage any of the materials during demolition, either for sale, for city use, or some residents have also expressed interest in purchasing some of the stuff that's inside?
I'm just going to ask is that a you question, Michelle? Or is that, I see Heather, or is that a Commissioner Van Oudegem again? Okay, I also see one of our other staff from facilities here. Okay, so back to you, Kevin.
Yep, I'm happy to take that one as well. Thank you, Mayor, through you to Councillor Vasic. So in terms of the salvage process, typically when we would demolish a building like this, we would not really salvage materials in that sense, that would be all encompassing within the RFQ, the request for a quotation that we would receive from a demolition contractor. So they would sort of retain the rights to salvaging those materials. I can share that the church has removed the items of significance to them already from the property. But what I would say is if there are items of, personal significance, not really, those of high monetary value, for example, but if there's some specific items of personal interest that were brought forward, we'd be happy to work with the contractor ultimately to have those items removed. But we would generally discourage sort of an active salvage of that property other than through the demolition contractor for reasons of health and safety primarily.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm just curious, when you say about items that might be of personal value, are you talking about the congregants who used to attend St. Columba? Or are you referring to sort of the general community? Or what were you thinking?
Yeah, to you, Mayor, just more so from the past parishioners as an example. If there was an item they felt was left behind there that, had significance to them, those would be the types of things we would be interested, we would be, open to removing from the building and making available. But generally speaking, we would discourage that practice. Just it's easier and for us just to have that sort of all bundled up within the contract for demolition. That's typically how that would happen. Otherwise, you can get into issues around, if there's items of financial value, how do you make sure that that's fairly given out to individuals? So it'd really just be for exceptional items that maybe, someone felt that were left behind. We're not aware of any of that, but just given the sensitivities of, what this property was in the past, we would just want to be respectful of that process if it was requested of us.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
This is my last question for now. But I know how important accessibility was in our conversations about this site, and I know that it came up about whether or not there should be an archaeological assessment here for reasons of truth and reconciliation. So I'm sure that it's really important to this council to know if the READY team has been invited to comment on this report and how that team is going to be involved moving forward. So would you be able to tell us more about that, please?
Yep, through the mayor to Councillor Vasic, I have talked to our two leaders of the READY team. They they definitely are supportive of the overarching goals of this project, and the community space, the affordable housing pieces are obviously very aligned with many of their objectives. They do feel that consultation would be more fruitful once we are a little farther down the path of our engagement and planning. I would love to invite one or both of them to attend the community engagement session so they can hear the comments coming from the community, and also seeking their support to reach out to specific focal groups that might have important information to share about level of affordability or specific unit sizes or needs that that they might have information about that I might not. So they will definitely be engaged increasingly as we get get farther into this process.
Super, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Basak. Councillor Freeman, did I see your hand? Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
you did.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. One, for Mr. Van Hoedingen, I was kind of surprised at your answer in terms of costing, because we know there's designated substances that reside within that church, that the heating, ventilation, and cooling system in the church was nearing, well, it was past end of life, meaning that at any time, the interior management of that space and making sure the pipes don't freeze and so on is basically near to a hair's breadth away. Not to mention the fact that it was built in '52 and it's in the middle of the property. So I'm really struggling with a cost estimate of $50,000 a year. It doesn't make sense to me. I think there's a lot more here than we're really unpacking, including the fact that an alternative use of something in the middle of this property will result in a record of site condition being triggered yet again.
Thanks. Over to you, Commissioner Van Hoedingen.
Yep, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Freeman. So yeah, just to clarify my comments on the 50,000, that's sort of just our cost today, just to kind of maintain the property from a property management perspective. But you're absolutely correct about additional costs. If this building was contemplated to be kept in some sort of state going forward, we've presented numbers here before in council of to the order of about 350,000, which would encompass a lot of the things you discussed. The boiler's 40 years old, as an example. The roof is old as well, and things like that. So if the 50,000 is really just to cover off things like utilities, snow clearing, grass maintenance, things of that nature, just to sort of maintain the property.
Go ahead, Councillor.
So my second question is with regard to development and, looking at this property for a future. And when we've gone out for expression of interest in the past, we haven't crippled the site by trying to put in all these conditions. We've tried to make it so that the community ends up with the best outcome. And maybe, Mr. Ormson, you would like to comment on some planning aspects of this piece?
Sure, over to you, Commissioner Ormson.
Through you, Mayor McCabe, to Councillor Freeman. Councillor Freeman, thanks for your question. And I can speak in general terms about what I see in the property here. There are some opportunities. It has frontage on 3 roads. It's got a decent land fabric. The presence of the building in the center of the site right now is not optimum from a yield perspective. Most developers would want to see how they could optimize the use of the site and probably even bring in higher order design standards, maybe even green building standards, to reduce energy costs for tenancies and to look at water efficiency. Stormwater management's a challenge on infill sites, so when we start with a clean slate here, and if we were to look at opportunities to reconfigure where parking is and access from the roads, I think we'd see some design opportunities here that would be able to really make the maximum use of an infill property like this.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up, or you're? No, okay. All right. Any further questions from council? Okay, seeing none, thanks very much, Michelle. And we'll go to, we have 3 delegations. The first one is Victoria Richardson, who's the co-chair of Lincoln Heights School Council. Thank you, Victoria, for coming here tonight, and thank you also for serving as on the school council. I did that many years ago, and it's a lot of work. but rewarding. So go ahead, you have 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just new to the council this year. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and staff. My name is Victoria Richardson, and I'm the current co-chair of Lincoln Heights School Council. My other co-chair is here with me tonight, and I'm speaking on behalf of school council and parents. Lincoln Heights is a school in the Waterloo Region District School Board that teaches from kindergarten to grade 8, located on Quick Fall Drive in Waterloo. We are 200 meters from the 250 Lincoln Road site of the former St. Columba Church. I'm speaking tonight because the City Council, up until this presentation, hadn't included the school in the presentation. So the school board currently has an agreement with the city that was transferred when the city bought the St. Columba property to use the site as parking for drop-off and pickup. With the development, we assume that we are losing this lot. We understand that the location is to be developed into housing, and we have transportation and safety concerns during that process. Lincoln Heights School suffers from a lack of safe, active transportation options. Ideally, we would love everyone to take active transportation, such as biking or walking, but realistically, people need to drive. We are worried about how the development will further complicate the safety of active transportation and decrease an already difficult parking situation for school drop-off and pickup. It's not for lack of effort or communication from the school surrounding driving or active transportation. In fact, our winter walk day is coming up on February 4th. Still, on a daily basis, the principal and vice principal are out there directing traffic to block a city road in order to ensure buses and taxis can safely drop off and pick up students. Admin and teaching staff are also out shoveling snow to create accessible paths at our school. So up here I have our Drive to 5 map. Drive to 5 maps help make school zones safer by promoting safe and legal parking areas 2 to 5 minutes away from schools. The maps help parents reduce emissions and congestion near schools. As you'll notice, 250 Lincoln Road is on this map and one of the only places that any sort of volume of traffic can be accommodated near our school. Next, I'd like to share this map that goes over pain points that we have for active transportation. Haha. So this is a little map that I made up. So Quick Fall Drive is number 1. This is a dead-end street that school buses and taxis use to drop off and pick up students. At these times, congestion is an issue, as parking is limited to a handful of spots. Drivers also can't use the roundabout to turn around, as taxis and school buses are there, making a lot of dangerous driving maneuvers while people try to do 3-point turns. Number 2 is Mayfield and Lincoln. So there's currently a crossing guard at this situation at school pickup and drop off. This is right by the lot that's to be developed. It's very busy, and with upcoming development, will only become busier. Lincoln Road is number 3. There is no parking on this due to bike lanes and bus routes, so this is not an option for drop-off or pickup. Number 4 is an unofficial rear pathway up to the school. There is a gate there, and the pathway is unmaintained in winter. It's not paved, and it's not accessible as it's up a steep hill. But there is a crossing guard that crosses directly in front, implying its official use by the school. Number 5 is Glenridge Plaza. There is no school parking in Glenridge Plaza. Parents were threatened by tickets by the landlord. The landlord was approached, but didn't want to deal with the insurance and risk of having official school parking. Regardless, the back of the school isn't accessible to get to the school. Number 6 is the lower staff lot driveway. This is used as access to the lower staff parking lot. There is no pedestrian pathway. The pedestrians that take this route walk among the cars. Lincoln and University. This is a major roadway. University is a major roadway, and it borders the schoolyard. It's busy and fast, so naturally there is hesitation from families who live on the other side of it to cross. In fact, people send their kids to a different school board in order to get to their children bused across this road. We need a crossing guard if we want more people to walk across this road, but as it's a regional road, we've been told they don't do crossing guards. Number 8 is a path that goes on to University. There's also a path that goes to Langford. There's a recently paved path from the school leading to Langford Drive. There's also a Desire Path that continues along the back of these houses. And a hole has been made in the fence and is used as an entrance to the school grounds along University. Number 9 is University in Glenridge. This is an intersection with a light and a pedestrian crossing, but it's located at the top of the hill where visibility is poor. Many families also do not feel safe to cross here. Again, we run into the regional road and crossing guard situation. So as you can see, we have many barriers to active transportation. But there is already a Student Transportation Services Traffic Committee that aims to address these concerns. So we ask you that as City Council will work with and be amenable to changes they would like to make to support active transportation development and safety in Lincoln Heights. Examples can include updated signage or changes in infrastructure. These changes need to be made so that our school community feels safe getting to and from school now and when parking at 250 Lincoln Road is eliminated. While we are working on this long-term goal, we'd like to suggest a short-term action. With the added development and demolition and construction slated for as early as spring 2026 and the lack of safe active transportation options, the busy corner of Lincoln, Mayfield, and Quickfall only becomes busier. The school encourages and has an agreement with the city to be able to drop off and pick up from the St. Columba parking lot. We are asking that council maintain sidewalks and parking at 250 Lincoln Road during the demolition and construction phase, as kids will still have to walk past this location to get to school. In summary, we are asking council that 1, in the short term, to maintain parking and sidewalks at 250 Lincoln Road before and during demolition and construction due to our lack of current active transportation options. And 2, in the long term, we ask that council works with Student Transportation Services Traffic Committee to support active transportation development to increase safety in and around Lincoln Heights School for now and when parking at 250 Lincoln Road is eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. That was a really helpful to have, your presentation was really helpful, just the way you laid it out there. Can I just, is number 7, is that, there's a traffic light there?
There is a traffic light there,
And then
yes.
there's one at 9?
Yeah, and
as
there is a
well.
pedestrian crossing on, yeah. a
Okay,
pedestrian
and
crossing.
just for my own clarification, when you say maintain sidewalks, are you talking about snow clearing, or are you talking about, like, is that, I just want to make sure you understand.
Just
what you mean.
that, specifically around 250 Lincoln Road, our ask. Yeah, snow clearing and that during demolition, the sidewalks aren't blocked by
Okay, I see,
construction
okay.
and, yeah.
Okay,
That
I
they're
just-
safe for kids and families to walk on.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to make sure I understood that. Questions then, Councillor Vassick?
Thanks, through you, Mayor. A great presentation. Thank you. I have one question for you and then one question for staff. My question for you is, are you the contact person to be talking with, or is there a different contact person who Michelle should be?
I just met her. Her name is Leslie Maxwell. She works with
Great.
Student Transportation. I'm sure, yeah, that's who you were talking about. Yeah, I met with her before this presentation to go over what pain points we did have and why we are asking the things we asked.
So then from your end, will you still be in contact with Leslie as well?
Yes,
So that you
yeah.
feel like you and the school council feel like you
Yeah,
are getting
so
your
our-
message there and then it's getting to the city. So no,
Yeah.
it's not lost, there's no
Yes.
gaps.
Yeah, we were just actually made aware of this traffic committee. I was personally not aware, but I'm also, this is my first year with a child in the school. But our principal has learned of this and is very interested in this, and I will definitely hear about it from him, let alone, yeah.
I was going to say, it's your first year with a child in school, but once you're on school council, you're on school council,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Yeah, and my co-chair has been there for decades.
Yeah, your child has to graduate before
Yeah,
you go.
their child has to graduate, so I'm learning the ropes from a very
Yeah,
experienced.
but Leslie Maxwell from the Student Transportation Services is excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, she's excellent, an excellent resource. But I was just curious if, because Bob Henderson's here as well, if you had anything you wanted to add to Councillor Vassick's, like her questions around, you were, oh, sorry, you did not add. I was just, okay, did you have, it's, I guess my question in my own head, did you have anything you'd like to just comment on with respect to Victoria's presentation? No, I'm asking Bob if he wanted to. Sorry, I'm mixing it. I was thinking you asked a question, but it's a question I had. Sorry to cause confusion. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The City of Waterloo works very closely with Leslie Maxwell and the Student Transportation Services group. We can certainly take this information back and work with Leslie on that and respond back to the delegation.
Thank you very much. And again, Bob was one of the staff who were at the meeting last Tuesday, and so has also heard, and I know you were there as well, Victoria. Thanks for helping to manage some of the... But yeah, so this is helpful information for us to have, you know, in addition to the discussion last Tuesday. But yeah, thanks, Mr. Henderson, for taking that on. Did I see Councillor Wright?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
my question was answered. I was only going to comment on how incredibly effective Leslie Maxwell is, so consider her your greatest ally.
Did you? Okay, thank you, Councillor Wright. Did I cut you off, Councillor Vasek? Okay. Okay. Are there any more questions for the delegate? No? Okay, thanks very much,
Thank you.
Victoria. Well done on your first... Okay, we don't clap. I mean, it seems very, I mean, we don't clap for delegations or, you know, because, anyway, we'll just ask you to refrain from clapping. Councillor Vasek.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. No, I think it's important to say why we don't clap. I think it's okay, because I think you were clapping because it was your first delegation and it was really good. So, I know. But you can explain.
There's a lot of rules and protocols with council proceedings, but because we want everyone to feel that they're welcome to come and say what's on their mind and tell us in their honest opinion, you know, their opinion on what the matter is. We don't want people to feel intimidated by, you know, clapping, or people then who maybe disagree with a delegate. So that's why the rules are just keep your thoughts to yourself. You can congratulate or not congratulate someone outside of the council chambers, because we certainly want people to feel that this is a safe place to come and share their perspectives with us. So thank you. Councillor Vasek.
Thanks. I mean, presumably there aren't any delegates here who are going to advocate for unsafe streets for children, but but yes, thanks, Mayor, and through you. I know you said you're going to take all of this back, which is really good, but I just wanted to ask specifically about the no construction during drop-off and pickups. Is that something that at this point you'd be able to guarantee, or is it something that you have to explore?
Through the mayor, I'm going to pass that on to Kevin Van Oudegem. He and I had a conversation about this morning, or this afternoon.
Thanks, Michelle. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Vasek. So maybe I can just walk through sort of the anticipated process for demolition if this is the way that goes. So we would look to install temporary construction fencing around the work zone. That's part of our typical practice, just to maintain that health and safety component. In terms of the hours of work, that is something that we've considered within this demolition contract that we'd be putting together, is, you know, to make it clear to them that, you know, the school is using the parking lot, and so we would put in language that they would have to avoid certain activities during the morning pickup and the afternoon drop off, just again as an added layer of protection. And that's something that I spoke with the team about in FDMS, and they can work into that contract. So yeah, those are things that we are considering, just given, you know, the proximity of this work site to that parking lot.
Okay, that's great. I mean, maybe they could incorporate some sort of museum element. When my kid was 2, we spent many, many hours uptown during LRT construction because, like, you know, after school time is pretty boring. So we would grab a snack and just look at the machines. So maybe there's like a way of making it fun and giving you all an activity for after school time while also making it safe. Certainly not council direction, just a fond memory I have. That's it for me.
And getting kids interested in the trades. That's it for you? Okay, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm not sure who maybe could answer this question, but I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Vasek's question and what Commissioner, can I just say VO? Okay, VO, sorry. About the perimeter, the safety perimeter, and if that would be inside the property line so that the sidewalk is still usable, or is that something that has to be decided at the time?
Yep, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Rowe. So yeah, those particulars we'd work through with the contractor, but our intent would be to write the contract in such a way that they would have to maintain that temporary fence line so that the sidewalk was free and unencumbered, and we would do our very best to maintain as much of that parking as possible, and we do feel that there would be opportunities to maintain most of it through the fence line.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. If there's no other questions at this point, we'll go to the next delegate, which is John Besford. Thank you, John. If you need to adjust the podium, there's There's arrows over to your left. You're okay? Okay, you have 10 minutes then.
Excellent. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is John Beresford, and I am a long-time resident of Lincoln Heights in Ward 5. And I'm here tonight regarding the report and discussion around the 250 Lincoln Road property, site of the former Columbia Church. I appreciate the city's efforts to address affordable housing. One of my concerns is that the recommendations before you tonight rely on a strategy set out in 2023, which may no longer reflect the demographic and economic reality of 2026 and beyond. So I'm asking council to postpone approval of this report based on the following three critical concerns. So the first one would be the housing pledge we have as a region versus the 2026 and beyond realities. So the report justifies high-density redevelopment as a way to meet the city's housing pledge of 16,000 units by 2031. While that target may have seemed necessary in 2023, the data has shifted and is shifting. So as of January 19th, 2026, Statistics Canada confirmed that the population growth in our region has slowed to its lowest rate in decades. The federal caps on international students and changes to the worker programs have fundamentally altered our growth trajectory, especially this area, which is very close to Conestoga College. We must pause and audit these targets against current data before we use them to justify altering the fabric of an established mature neighborhood. So no one would debate that we have a crisis for housing. In this region, we're going to see population swings that are more dramatic than any other region in Canada. Right? We grew the fastest during COVID, and now we've contracted the fastest. It'll be interesting to see how that changes the use of spaces around the city and around the region. So it's such a unique time for us. It's interesting to make decisions like this when the data is changing so dramatically. So the second point I wanted to make was sort of the fiscal risk of a premature demolition. The city's already invested $2.2 million in this property, and is now recommendation number 4 now asks that an additional $120,000 go to demolishing the structure in the spring, May or April. One concern would be tearing down a community landmark before a development partner has been selected through the REOI process. It is a significant fiscal risk. It's also not a great community experience. But if procurement or planning faces delays, which we suggested that the ROE should be extended to make sure we get the best possible proposals and the best possible suggestions, extending that, if the procurement or planning faces delays, we can often see in these projects, Lincoln Heights will be left with a vacant lot, which maybe we can't do what we would like to do with it. That hasn't been proposed yet or hasn't been finalized. So my request to council would be to amend recommendation number 4 and to simply delay any demolition until the building permit or official project for development is ready to be issued to a secured partner. And then finally, the third point would be zoning integrity and infrastructure mismatch. So I just want to address the request to amend the planning framework for efficient use of the land. So in a neighborhood primarily composed of single detached homes, efficient use should not be a placeholder for high-density rezoning. The 250 Lincoln site is not located on the Ion Light Rail and is not a major transit corridor. We have one bus stop close by, but it is certainly not a major transit corridor. It is a car-dependent residential pocket. High-density, low-income housing is most successful when residents have immediate access to high-frequency transit. But I urge council to reject any amendments that move this property away from low-density zoning. Instead, I think we should focus on gentle density, such as family size but still affordable homes that actually reflect the scale and infrastructure which we were able to see on the map provided, the scale and infrastructure of Ward 5. So in closing, to conclude, I'm asking council to postpone the report until the housing pledge is audited against 2026 growth data. Also, protect the current low-density zoning of this site. And then finally, I'd suggest delaying demolition until a final development contractor is signed or no interim potential interim usage of the space is sort of finalized a little more. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thanks very much.
No, you don't,
please,
you don't have
yeah.
to, no, you're not supposed to
Yeah.
clap. But you're
yeah,
also
yeah.
not
We just went
supposed to
through the
boo.
rules. We
Yeah.
just went through the rules, people. Okay, thanks, John. Are there questions for the delegate? Councillor Rowe. Okay. Sorry, I'll let Councillor Vasek start, sorry.
Okay, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, at the beginning, did you say that the report said this was going to be high density?
That was my understanding, is that the report is going to be rezoning. There's an application for rezoning. Is that not the case? Because there certainly is low-density zoning right now. Is that not the case?
Do you want to respond to that, Michelle?
Through the mayor to Councillor Vasek, the proposal is to look at a possible zoning amendment. It could be that it stays within the low-density low-density official plan designation. But right now, there are some restrictions on building forms in the zoning that prohibit certain desirable built form types. There is the possibility, though, through further consultation, that we might want to increase heights, possibly, like right now, it's as of right 4 stories, possibly 5, maybe up to 6. I think we're looking at something below 6 as being reasonable, but we don't want to sort of presuppose without having gone out to the community and talking to affordable housing providers.
Okay, thank you. And what would 5 or 6 stories be considered? Would it be considered high density?
Through the mayor to Councillor Vasek, no, that would be considered medium density. Well, 5, to be honest, I'm not sure where 5 would fall. 6 stories, I think, is where the medium density starts.
Okay, I hope that clarification's useful, just because I didn't see high density in here. So we're looking at potentially low mid density to something lower. It
Yeah.
sounds like potentially.
Certainly a fair point to me and possibly other members of my community. A 5-story building in that place would still seem like a very out of place mismatch for the community. Regardless of definition, that does seem like something that doesn't fit within the confines of the space, the community, transportation there. So I would still argue that's probably in line with what I was here to object against.
Yep, noted, and I think staff have heard that, and there will be a further consultation. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get out into the media that we suggested high density for there tonight, because we're not considering or contemplating that, and it doesn't sound like it here too. So I just want to make sure to clarify. But your concerns and comments are noted for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bassett. Councillor Bodley. Oh, no, okay, Councillor Bodley. Okay, your question was already answered. Okay, thanks very much. Sorry, Councillor Roach.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. Statistics Canada, you are correct, shows a slowing down of currently. However, the current slowdown, also using data, is primarily among international students. Since this project is targeted at long-term residents with moderate wealth and seniors, how does a drop in the student enrollment change the urgent need for senior-friendly affordable housing in Lincoln Heights?
Yeah, so that would be simply a potential opening up of other properties, right? So student housing there's student housing along that area. There's student housing that is even closer to university, which would arguably be more high traffic density. At this point in time, when we use the term, it was excessive property. What was the term you defined for us earlier?
Surplus lands, or is that what
Yeah,
you're
surplus
looking for?
land.
Surplus lands.
I think the suggestion would be made that planning right now really is a bit myopic, right? We don't know what other surplus of land is going to become available because of those changes. So student populations in that area and a reduction of them could create new opportunities for new land development that we just simply don't know right now because this swing is happening. We're living through that population change. So you're not wrong that the student housing as it sits right now doesn't address, seniors and low-income homes, but neither did a church 2 years ago, right? So you just don't know what opportunities are going to come up as this population shift happens.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarity, the surplus lands refers only to what the city owns. It's not, I mean, the other lands that you were talking about, other housing, those are private, owned by private or nonprofits. This city wouldn't have the ability to declare anything like that surplus. We're just talking about our own. We're just talking about our own lands.
Sure, for sure, but you also purchased this land, so now it's yours, right? There could be
Yeah.
other opportunities and other buildings that you then purchase and become part of the assets of the city and region.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get into a debate about this, but as the staff report, or the staff presentation indicated, typically the city, like, affordable housing and getting involved in purchasing this site is new for the city. This isn't sort of a typical process for us. So we own a number of other pieces of land throughout the city. For a variety of reasons, we were holding the land at that 2025 University Avenue. We had held a large parcel of land for many years. We purchased it for Rim Park, and then over time didn't need it, so that was where that land was declared surplus. Anyway, that's a whole, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I just want to be clear, surplus lands only refers to land that the city owns, but I see that you have a question. Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, it's just a clarification. I mean, the reason why we have this land is we had grant money to purchase it. And we used housing, the Housing Accelerator Fund money to purchase this land with the intent to develop attainable housing. And the city only has the ability to affect change on lands that we really own. And so that was why this parcel was purchased. And just for clarity, like, in terms of active transportation, I found your comments really interesting, because when this site was being considered for an alternative use, a lot of neighbors told us how well served it was by transit. So your comments around transit seem contrary to what we heard in the past.
Yeah, there is one bus route that goes there. I'm not sure if people are referring to car routes, but I mean, certainly it is not a hub for high density or medium density or 5-story housing at that corner.
Okay, thanks very much. John? All right.
Thank you.
And we will, next and last delegation is Wendy Ridgway, who's a representative of Eyes on Waterloo. Welcome back, Wendy. And if you need to adjust the podium, it's just to your left. Left? Your left? Yeah. Okay, and you can adjust the mic there as well. Okay, you have 10 minutes. Thanks, Wendy.
Mayor and councillors, my name is Wendy Ridgway, and I'm speaking on behalf of Eyes on Waterloo, the grassroots community group that formed last June following council's decision on St. Columba. And thank you to so many who were able to shovel out and get here this evening. Since that time, EOW members have attended or listened to council meetings. Through that engagement, what I share with neighbors and friends across the city when they ask is that I observe a consistent pattern. Residents come forward with data grounded in current statistics, thoughtful analysis, and reasonable requests, not to stop housing in their neighborhoods, but to advocate for appropriate density, adequate parking, meaningful green space. Despite their efforts, zoning amendments that significantly alter neighborhoods are approved, leaving residents discouraged and uncertain of how their input has informed the final decision. We've been told this happens because council's hands are tied. If council denies a developer's zoning request, the developer appeals and the tribunal rules in their favor. I believed that explanation until I read the report for 250 Lincoln. Page 5, the report states, a review and possible amendments to the official plan if needed and zoning bylaw are recommended to facilitate the development. So let's be clear, this is not a developer-driven request in this case. This recommendation originates with city staff, and therefore council has full authority and responsibility to the outcome. Mayor and councillors, we have 2 requests. The first one, amend the report to remove any reference to zoning or official plan amendments. The property at 250 Lincoln is zoned R1. The city owns this land and is proposing to grant it at no or nominal cost. Therefore, the city holds the leverage, not developers. You, mayor and councillors, hold the cards in this circumstance. Even current zoning interpretations could result in 3 to 4 story with multiple buildings and 63 units on this site, which would significantly constrain parking, green space, tree retention. We're asking that council include a clear condition in the REOI. No rezoning will be considered, and only low-density residential housing permitted in exchange for the land being provided at minimal or no cost. Page 6 of the report states, collect information about unit types and sizes that are in great demand and are not readily provided by housing builders. Up on the screen, I've provided some data that already exists. Waterloo is saturated with one-bedroom condos. Now the market is rapidly shifting again and becoming saturated with townhouses. Townhouse prices are falling faster and deeper than single detached homes. Here are the findings from the region. These are findings from the Waterloo Region Association of Realtors report dated January 7th. Total residential sales in December included 192 detached homes, no change from December 24. 52 townhouses are down 39.1%. 35 condo units down 14.6. 26 semi-detached homes up 23.8. The report shows average sale price of detached homes increased 1.4%, while townhouse price decreased 4.4, condos decreased 13.1, and semi-detached decreased 5.6. Only single detached homes increased month to month. This is the current market by which to make decisions. The missing middle is seeking affordable, attainable ownership, stability, and modest family-oriented homes. Couples, seniors, singles, young families search for homes with a small yard and no monthly condo townhouse fees added to their mortgage. And for those who prefer condos and townhouses, that's great. There's a fantastic selection out there and many more already approved for building. Planning must respond to current data. Just as we wouldn't rely on 5-year-old technology, planning decisions must reflect today's realities. Low-density, single-detached housing addresses concerns raised tonight and consistently what we've expressed all along. Parking and school safety. With appropriate parking for each home, pressure is reduced on Quickfall Drive, keeps our children safe as they walk to and from Lincoln Heights School. Perhaps a small school drop-off and pickup area could be incorporated. Green space. Children should have room to play, something I've heard Mayor McCabe repeatedly emphasize to developers. Let's be proactive this time because you can. Tree preservation. Beautiful mature trees on this site could remain. Traffic. A dead-end street adjacent to an elementary school must be treated with care. Water capacity. Come on. Given the region's declared water constraints, no zoning amendment would be the responsible and prudent choice. It's difficult to reconcile continued intensification until the long-term water capacity is fully addressed and resolved. Releasing this report as written with potential for rezoning is deeply concerning. The second request is that Council clearly can define what is meant by affordable housing for this site before any further steps are taken. Affordable housing encompasses a wide range of housing forms. This report does not specify what's being contemplated at 250 Lincoln. Without clarity, neither Council nor the public can properly assess appropriateness, impacts, or alignment with the surrounding context. One of the most significant considerations for this site is immediate proximity, less than 200 meters to the school. It's concerning that the school was neither referenced in the report nor shown on the map in the report. So I'm glad that got amended for tonight's submission, because that omission matters. Land use requires full context, particularly where schools, traffic patterns, and daily child pedestrian movement are involved. We strongly encourage Council and staff to conduct on-site observations during school drop-off and pickup times and experience firsthand the traffic, parking constraints, and pedestrian activity on Quickfall Drive. The reality should inform the type and density of housing considered appropriate for this location. Housing development should consistently recognize the importance of context-sensitive planning, particularly near schools, rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. Our community has experienced significant change, including safety concerns in nearby public spaces. Residents are not opposing new neighbors or affordable housing. We are asking that housing choices for this site prioritize safety, compatibility, and long-term neighborhood stability. Affordable and attainable housing that supports positive integration and respects the surrounding community. We have already experienced deep disappointment twice. June's vote reneging on what was initially accepted unanimously and announced to our community. Then in November, learning that council declined an opportunity to sell this land to a reputable community organization, a sale that would have provided rentable community space as well as generated about $100,000 in profit on Lincoln. Learning and hearing this weeks later, that a 6.4 tax increase, the largest increase in a decade and higher than any other city in this region, is difficult to accept. If this report proceeds unchanged, two outcomes are certain. First, council will have missed an opportunity to rebuild community trust that was lost. Second, there will be increased safety risks for children accessing Lincoln Heights School on Quick Fall Drive. Council has both the authority and the opportunity to make a different choice here. We are asking you to use it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Are there questions or comments? Questions of staff? Do you have questions of the delegate? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. Thank you for delegating this evening. I think I first of all just want to acknowledge what you have stated, that change is happening and it's rapid, and that can be very disconcerting. And I think we hear that from different places and different neighborhoods across the city. It is something that we're experiencing in the city, certainly with the countryside line and the city going up as opposed to out, so it does impact our neighborhoods. So we do hear that. I'm wondering, you had spoken about green space, and so I'm wondering if you can talk a bit more about what green space you're looking for. What are you using the property now? Are kids in the neighborhood using the property now? A little bit more information just about what you're thinking you'd like to see in terms of green space.
Sure. Well, first of all, when I was referring to change, I was referring to that change is happening in the statistics, as John referred to as well, that you can't continue with a plan that isn't based on what's happening out there in society and what's already happening. So it's not about change coming to the community, it's about making decisions that are respectful to the changes that are happening very rapidly in this community. When you talk about green space, in looking and coming to some of the meetings, it's beyond me that developers, especially all the Toronto developers that seem to be coming to Waterloo, seem to include that the front door and a shrub at the front door is part of the percentage of green space. That is not true green space. A place for children to run and play is green space. So currently, it's not about having use of the space currently, it's about building residences that have place for children, because there will be young children, I can't imagine, and if it was seniors, to have a place to safely go outside and sit within the property that they have without having to manage traffic and everything.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Rowe? Okay. Well, we are going to have a chance to ask questions of staff, so why don't we hold the... Okay, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for clarifying about the green space. I wasn't sure if you meant for residents or if you meant for the neighborhood, so that provides some clarity.
Residents.
Thank you. And if I could ask staff, if you could talk a little bit about the delegates was speaking around condos, townhouses, fees. Can you speak to the affordable, attainable units proposed for this site and how that relates to fees? Like, to my knowledge, this is not what's happening here.
Through the mayor to Councillor Rowe. I think the delegate, raises a good point that it is important to use current data, including current housing data, housing prices, rental prices, or rents, to inform decision making. I think that's what we're proposing as part of the next steps, is to do that that research as well as to consult. We specifically didn't identify whether or not the site would be used for rental housing or ownership housing. We do know that there is a glut of very extremely small condos in the market, and we certainly don't want to reproduce that. So ultimately, what we'd like to do as part of this next step and planning investigation is to look at what is the housing type, and that would include tenure, that's appropriate for the community in this current era of reduced immigration, but still a real backlog of affordable housing needs that hasn't been met and that continues to grow. So I would say the details about what a condo fee might look like is really quite premature, and I can't imagine an affordable housing development that, you know, maybe makes an ownership unit affordable but then has unaffordable condo fees. So we would be definitely looking for a model that doesn't create that scenario.
Thank you for clarifying. That's what I was looking for. And also, I wonder if we can speak at all to the trees on the property. The delegate had mentioned that trees would come down. I don't know that we're at that stage yet. I don't know what numbers that would even look like, or if that's something that would come in the request for expressions of interest and further down site plan. If you could speak to that, that would be great.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Rowe. Yes, absolutely. Tree retention is something we always consider as part of any site plan application. At this early stage, we're not at site plan application, but retention of mature trees is always something we like to see and encourage. So we can continue to listen to the community about the things they value about that site, and if there are opportunities to retain the trees and build that into a request for expression of interest, we could certainly consider that.
Thank you. Councillor Bodley. Not to the gallery? Okay, Councillor Vasek.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. Thanks, Wendy. I understand what you want in regards to zoning tonight and what you're asking council to do. But I am curious about how not doing, or how going with the staff report would be an erosion of trust. I certainly appreciate how some of what has happened up until this point has contributed to that, but I'm not clear what you meant by approving this report being a further loss in trust.
Because what our ask is, the number one ask was asking to not amend the zoning. That is, you know, it's crucial to what Victoria was speaking to as far as the staffing or the student safety at Lincoln Heights School. It's what John was asking about with the density. The density isn't just that we don't want this big building. It's that the children in our neighborhood that go to Lincoln Heights School, their safety is at great risk. And as I said in my delegation, I wish you would come out at drop-off time and pick-up time and see that chaos that already exists with having parking and everything. It's hard to explain some of these things without you looking, and I feel like as council and councillors and mayor, you need to go out into not just our community, but other communities where delegates come and see for yourself. You know, the tree retention, when I spoke to a city staff member way back in the summer about this and mentioned a tree, the response was, oh, we tried to find that on Google Maps and couldn't find it. Come and take a look at the tree. Come and see the traffic and see the consequences of the decisions that are made by this council. I know that your job isn't easy, and I know it's taxing and time-consuming, but please take the time, because we're talking about children's safety. It's not just a height of a building, it's the consequences of how many units are in that building and the traffic that is increased because of that building. Please try and understand that.
Did you have a follow-up?
I have a question for staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just hold on then. Are there any other questions for the delegate? No? Okay. I just want to, Wendy, thank you for following this process and for delegating tonight. And I do just want to let people know, I mean, we're always out in the community, and certainly I know staff are as well. Like, we make a point, I mean, that's the point of having ward councillors. They know the wards really well. They're out, they're very active. I try to get out to as many community events in different wards as possible. So we're very, I think I could say on behalf of our council here, we're very familiar with what the area in question looks like. But thanks very much. Yeah, thanks for not clapping. Okay, so that's the last of the delegations tonight. So, council, there's a report in front, or recommendations in front of us, so
I had
I'll
a
look-
question of staff.
Yeah, I know, I'm getting there. I'm getting to the questions for staff. I'm just saying there's a report or recommendations in front of us, so we'll look to, we have some questions of staff, but we also look if, when someone is prepared to move it. So I'll just remind you of that process. And so I do have a list, and I'm gonna start with you, Councillor Bodley. Oh, sorry, did you have a?
I just had a question whether it made sense to put a motion on the table and then we'd ask our questions of staff.
Based on the motion? I mean, that's the typical process.
I'm happy to move the motion as prepared. If
Okay.
there's a seconder, I don't know.
Okay, there's Councillor Freeman has moved it. Are you prepared to second it? Okay, so the motion is on the table, so I had Councillor Bodley as the first. Okay, then over to Councillor Vasek. and
Thanks.
then- yeah.
My question is directly for staff, directly related to the delegation. And I just will have an opportunity, of course, now that it's on the table, to discuss it publicly so people can hear what we're thinking as a council. And so we may be discussing your recommendation. And if we decide to move ahead with this report as it is, generally, particularly related to the zoning as well, can you talk a little bit, Michelle, about how different perspectives are considered throughout? So even if we don't say we want to keep it as R1 tonight, how will that be considered amongst other inputs? So from community groups you reach out to, who maybe the Ready team assists us reaching out to builders in the for-profit and not-for-profit sector, and et cetera. So how will those, because it's important to the neighborhood, so even if we don't solidify that tonight, we may, but if we weren't to, how does that get considered amongst all the other perspectives?
Through the mayor to Councillor Vasek. So we do know that there's a lot of interest by the neighborhood, and so our proposal is to provide information on the website, all the background information that has led us up to this point, and then to have a community meeting to continue to talk through these items and interests. In addition to that, though, we do have an obligation as a city to consider the input from all members of the community, and also to think about future members of the community. So we are also going to be taking into consideration the feedback we hear from people beyond the immediate neighborhood who maybe are looking to downsize or looking to find affordable housing, as well as particular target groups that have specific information that we're hoping to learn from. All of that information is then taken back by staff after listening and recording what we hear. Planning is not a black and white process. Unfortunately, I wish it was. We use planning principles and the strategic plan to guide our work. So we are really looking at the fundamental objectives of council and what council would like to achieve, combined with what makes good planning and what builds a good community, recognizing that that might result in some change that some people don't like, but then change that other people like. So I know that that's a really nebulous answer, but the steps would be gathering feedback from the neighborhood and also the broader community. I guess one thing I should add too is that in any planning process, should there be a planning amendment that staff believe is appropriate, we would document the rationale, exactly what would be proposed in that amendment, the rationale for why staff believe that's a good idea to amend the planning framework, and then that would be publicly available for the neighborhood to read and comment on through a draft that would be available online, and we would hold an informal public meeting to give the public an opportunity again to provide feedback, and then that would come to council for the ultimate decision. So this decision today isn't related to whether or not we're going to approve any specific planning framework amendments. It's really giving direction to staff to go down that path of exploring, should we consider amending, and if so, there will be a further council report that's shared with the community and another council decision.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful to me for clarity on the nuances of it. So you did mention an informal here, and it's not explicitly listed here. So will there be an informal here given the amount of public consultation you're doing?
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Vasic. Should there be an amendment proposed, yes, we would host an informal, in addition to the timeline that you see in the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, through you, I just want to be clear, like, I am not approving a zoning amendment tonight. I am not, okay? It would be my expectation that if any rezoning of this property happened, that we would see a full planning report that would include an up-to-date traffic study, that would look at the current flows all through that neighborhood. It would include an up-to-date functional site servicing report. It would include a full overview of all of the things that we heard tonight in terms of pathways, trail systems, all of those pieces. It would obviously include a market review and an economic overview of the market. And I would expect it to come through our regular planning process, which is at a minimum an informal meeting and a formal meeting. And we're talking about a community meeting too. So I want to be clear. What I have moved here is not a change in any zoning. Is that fair to say?
Through the mayor to Councillor Freeman, absolutely. This would go through a very standard planning process with all the reports and assessments that any development application would go through. And then again, those meetings that you said.
Thank you. Are there any other questions to staff? Okay. Hold on. Are there any other questions before I go back to, no? Okay. Did you want to make comments, or? Because I know that Councillor Bodley also wanted to make comments, or?
It's related to Councillor Freeman's.
Okay.
Yeah, where I agree, that's what we're doing. That was my understanding as well. But I just want to highlight, because I know what matters to the residents, although I'm not putting that recommendation forward. But it could be, if anyone else on council wanted to put that recommendation forward, which is to just keep it at zoning and never go through a zoning amendment. That's what they're asking of us tonight. So I just want to be clear on behalf of the residents from the neighborhood that is what Eyes on Waterloo is asking for, and that's what it sounds like the second delegate is asking for as well. Not everyone in the neighborhood is asking for that. There are people who are in support of more density on this site who are not here tonight. But I just want to make sure that everyone on council is clear that what the delegates are asking for is that we direct staff to require that this stays at R1 low density. So if anyone would like to take that up, that is your prerogative. But I just want to be clear that everyone's clear on that, so that doesn't get lost.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Vasic. So then, seeing no other questions of staff, I know Councillor Bodley, you said that you had some comments?
Yeah, if that's okay, thank you, through you,
Sure.
Mayor. I just wanted to address a couple of things that were sort of brought up here this evening, and just particularly on that last note. I mean, I completely and fully agree that this should go through a planning process, and if a zoning change is happening, I mean, that's our standard process, and I would encourage the residents who are here today to follow that if that's indeed the way that it goes. But while I fully agree with Councillor Freeman that we're not approving any zoning framework change here tonight, I really think we should expect that we're going to see something that isn't R1, our absolute lowest level of zoning, to come forward here in an affordable housing a property designed for affordable, purchased for the point of building affordable housing, isn't going to be, 3 fully detached McMansions. Like, that's not what this is going to be. That won't be affordable, and that's not what we're intending to do with this site. That's not why we spent $2.2 million on this site. I want to speak to the school pickup and drop-off issues. I'm sure, I know my colleagues have seen the school pickup and drop-off chaos at every single one of their schools in the entire city. It's an enormous issue, and I really applaud Victoria, who came in here, and the folks who work on all of our school travel committees across the whole city who are working really hard to try and mitigate some of these concerns. It's a great benefit to the community that the private owner of this property was willing to work with the school board and come up with a solution that was helpful. And it is unfortunate that that is likely to not be the case anymore. And it is incumbent upon us at the city to work to mitigate and manage those issues that come forward. So I appreciate Victoria coming forward and highlighting that, and I encourage staff to continue to work on those as we do in every single school across the whole city. And I want to speak to the stats that some of the folks brought forward here. While there has been a change in the statistics and the immigration and the growth, absolutely, planning is forward-looking. We're not looking strictly just at what is happening today. We have to be looking forward, and it would be silly of us to think that we're not going to see population growth in the region when we look at many of our planning documents that go out to 2050, that go out further than that. And I would contend that the decrease in prices of townhomes and some of the other properties that were brought forward, that's a good thing. That means that housing prices are coming down a little bit, and I don't see that as a justification for us to not move forward with that housing type necessarily. But on that point, where I can assure you that there is no change in those statistics is in the number of people on the affordable housing wait list. And maybe I shouldn't say no change, but there are still thousands of people on the affordable housing wait list. And for us, the purpose behind why council chose to buy this property was to keep it out of the hands of a private developer who very likely would have come forward here with a zone change where the city would have had virtually no input into what was going to happen on the site, where, to use the delegates' vernacular, council's hands would have been tied. I don't agree fully with that, but more tied than they are today when we own the property. The reason we bought this property was to build affordable housing there. And this is the first step in seeing what that's going to look like. I would encourage residents to continue to follow what that's going to look like, but there will be affordable housing on this site. That was why we bought it. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bodley. And so you had some additional comments? Go ahead, Councillor Bassett.
Yeah, I mean, just as the ward councillor, I wanted to thank everybody for coming today and for hopefully continuing to engage in the process. Everything you want, you will not get, but hopefully we will come to some sort of vision that we appreciate and love as the city grows and that we can adapt to. And like Councillor Rose said, change is hard. My sense from this meeting is I think how we are feeling on council is that we need to balance between the broad community needs for affordable and attainable housing, as well as the local neighborhood context and the love you have for your neighborhood. And thank you for bringing to attention with such detail and clarity some of your concerns and what you're advocating for. It's helpful. It will impact what happens here, even if it's not exactly what you want. And it's necessary, and so I hope you continue to engage. Even when those times get heightened, I hope. And I think we have captured much of what is important. Staff have it, but among other things, the school parking, the zoning considerations and concerns, interim parking as well. Water capacity issues were raised, and so while we aren't directing staff to do anything differently at this time, staff are very much on top of this. No one wants anyone to lose water capacity. The community space is definitely something that's top of mind, and I think we're going to have to continue speaking about its viability to make sure that there's a good balance between the housing and the community space. Looking at current data, appreciated that you said that, Michelle, that we are going to be in this next phase looking at data to inform what kind of housing ought to be there, so we're not just basing it on past numbers. I mean, I know that there are many lower income folks, women in particular, who are sort of on the cusp of losing their housing and going into homelessness. And so, not to say that's what's going to go here, but there are a lot of people who are at risk of homelessness, who are, you know, folks just like many of us in the room who could lose their housing. And so the reason why I'm comfortable with this moving forward is because I really don't want to limit proposals coming in through the REOI. I think it's important that we get a good quantity and a good quality, and then we can assess moving forward. So that's where I'm at right now. Now all of you know, and I'm happy to engage in further conversations. Some of those may be heated, some of them may not, but it's really important that we continue to have them. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Vasic. Appreciate you eloquently summing up the various questions and comments that people had, and for, you know, showing, you know, that council really does appreciate the input from residents. We listen to it, but we're also, it's a balancing act as well. So thank you for that. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to make one last comment on the places of worship and the reimagining the properties that have traditionally been places of worship. I think we have almost 1,000 acres across the Waterloo region of that are in the holdings, the real estate holdings, belong to different denominations, faith-based denominations. And we're going to see more and more conversion of those properties over the next 20 years. It's probably going to be, you know, for anybody sitting around right now that knows that there's a handful of churches in their neighborhood, we are going to see those convert into something else. That is sort of written in the sand at the moment. We have an opportunity here to work through a number of the critical issues that are involved in reimagining places of worship. As a city, we have an opportunity to provide leadership about what a good repurposing of that real estate portfolio could look like for community benefit. And that is the critical thing, because for so many places of worship, they did not contribute property taxes. They were property tax exempt. And we have a social contract with places of worship that they are providing community benefit in our neighborhoods. And I think that is something that we are carrying through in this process as we move forward, and it will help influence the redevelopment of these properties in other neighborhoods. So you have an opportunity to contribute to how that public benefit is expressed. And I think it's a call to action to everybody in our community to lean into this process, continue to be engaged, because you will shape how this happens going forward. And I just want to leave that at that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wright. Just looking to see if there's any other comments from anyone. Just wanted to say thanks to Councillor Wright, Councillor Botley, and Councillor Vasic. I was going to do sort of a summation, but you did it all very, very eloquently. So thank you. So I won't spend time repeating what you've already said so well. So, Council, we have 5 recommendations on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So there are some other agenda items that we're going to continue with our council meeting tonight. Thank you again to everyone who delegated. And as Councillor Vasic and Councillor Wright said, please continue to engage and follow this process. I'll just give them a minute for people. There are to just exit. Actually, I guess we can still continue. There's some. What's the clerk doing there? Okay, so you're okay? Okay, all right. We have no consideration of notice of motion given at a previous meeting, there are none. Notice of motion, there are none. Communications and correspondence, there are none. Unfinished business, there is none. Questions, council? Any questions of council? I have a question. I just, in conversations with our Indigenous advisor, Brian Hill, recently, we were talking about, you know, some economic development, economic reconciliation. And so I was just curious, I guess I'll look to, I don't know if that's you, Mr. Anderson, or Michelle. It's about economic reconciliation. I was just curious about when we would have it's okay, I'll let Tim take this one. You're just about when we could expect an update on that. Like are we looking sort of Q2 or Q3?
Thanks, Mayor McCabe. Yes, I'll take that one away. I believe Brian Hill, who is our Indigenous advocate, is working on that aspect of our reconciliation journey, and I sense it's the third quarter.
Okay.
But I'll confirm that with council.
Okay, and would that include, would that also include like perhaps some update to our procurement policies with respect to, you know, engaging First Nation businesses, business owners?
It may, and I'm going by memory now, but Brian, as you may recall, has been very active in an AMO committee that has set the stage for municipalities to enter into relationship agreements and kind of describe what's important for the municipality and what's important for the Indigenous communities. And I think that would be the framework, and it may or may not include that component. But,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tim. And yes, Brian he's the chair of the Indigenous Reconciliation Action Group at Waterloo, across Waterloo Region. He's our Indigenous advisor, and also does a lot of work at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. So he's doing a lot of work for us, not just for us, but across the province. So thank you for that. Okay, new business, Council, Councillor Wright.
Thank you. As most people would acknowledge, there was a major winter event over the weekend. We had the benefit of celebrating winter on the front end of that with our Waterloo in Uptown, with the many ice carvings, and there were sled dogs out and people just enjoying the lovely bright winter weather, and it was not too cold as long as you were wearing your long johns. At the same time, the Comfort Food Crawl was taking place in Uptown, and that's a fundraiser for the Waterloo Region Food Bank. They raised $8,000 over the course of the event, and it was a great showcase of Uptown restaurants and comfort food. It was really well attended. There was 400 people basically crawling through a number of different establishments. It was great fun. And then, of course, we got slammed with snow. And so a big shout out to our winter control team for just their sheer perseverance. It is tough out there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wright. You beat me to the shout out to Bob Henderson, our Transportation Services Director, and Robin Milne, our Parks, Cemeteries, and Forestry. I don't know if I've missed one of them. But yeah, in addition to all the snow clearing, the continual snow clearing that's like been since the end of November till, you know, the beginning of November. It's been a historic amount of snow that's fallen, and in addition to the streets, it also, we know we care a lot about trying to do our best to keep the sidewalks clear for people, particularly with mobility issues, to move around and access. And I know it's certainly not perfect, but we know the crews are working really, really hard, and we appreciate the leadership that both Bob and Robin and your teams are providing. And just a reminder to anyone listening to please shovel your sidewalks. It is critically important that you do that frequently. Okay, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yes, I wanted to mention, if you haven't already heard, that the provincial government is funding a $17.8 million expansion at St. David's Catholic Secondary School in Ward 6, which is incredibly exciting, especially with the projected growth in that area. I know Councillor Freeman on the other side of Weber at the Waterloo Inn area, there's going to be significant development and on Albert Street, 446 Albert Street. So it's really exciting news, and the school is they're excited for it, and so I was happy to be there for that announcement on Friday.
Thank you for representing the city there, Councillor Roy. Was unable to attend, but yeah, you're right. That is, we appreciate the provincial government, and it's something we've talked to them about. If our population is growing, provincial services have to follow. So that's good to see. Councillor Vasek.
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Mayor. I just wanted to capture formally in new business what you've mentioned a couple times, which was the community meeting around traffic safety at Cardinal Crescent, but Bridgeport, Herb and Margaret, and Bridgeport and Margaret kind of area. And thanks to the two residents from the neighborhood, from the Cardinal Crescent neighbors who organized it, and Bob Henderson was there. Ileana from your executive assistant from the elected officials office organized the snacks and the bookings and communicating with the residents to organize it all. And then we also, of course, had regional staff there as well, Daryl Spencer and Mike Henderson. And that's the second community meeting in the neighborhood. And I have forgot to thank staff for their efforts at another meeting, which actually really came out of the St. Columba 250 Lincoln work, to say that they wanted to be more engaged, not more engaged, but more educated on the planning process and communications and engagement at the city. And so we had Carrie Van Niekirk, who's Director of Communications, Joel Cotter, Director of Planning, and Linda Van Den Ecker organized the entire event, just like Ileana did with the food and the bookings and communicating with, liaising and organizing. So those were two really well-attended community meetings. Actually, I counted like rows and then I multiplied. And there were probably about 120 people there. So it was a really big turnout, so that's really good. Fewer people at the other event, but some people I'd never seen before, including proponents of affordable housing. So lots of good stuff happening in the neighborhood.
Thank you for that outreach, Councillor Vasek. Any other comments or questions? I just wanted to do a quick shout out because I missed doing it when the planning process that was happened this afternoon, because I know Councillor Bodley has spent hours door knocking in his area where that planning that application came forward this afternoon, and I meant to just thank you for doing that, because because it takes a lot of time, and you have engaged residents in a lot of conversations about the planning that's coming to that neighborhood as well. So just appreciate you doing that. So thank you very much. I know you all work really hard to represent your wards really well. So, okay, Councillor Roach.
Yeah, I've accepted an official invitation from the Honourable Mark Miller. He's the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, to attend on behalf of Waterloo the Government of Canada's Black History Month celebration, marking the 30th anniversary next week. So the 3rd and 4th, and it's at the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau.
Oh, nice. Do you need a +1?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that, Councillor Roach. That's really great to hear, especially during Black History Month. Okay, fantastic. You'll have to tell us. You'll have to give us a report on how that went. Okay, so enactment of bylaws, moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Wright. All in favor? That is carried. Adjournment. Moved by Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.